the recording.
Okay.
Thanks. Okay. Thanks. All righty. So, hi, James, Gary. How are you?
Hey, Jack, how you doing?
I'm doing great. Thank you for joining us. We're short one member, but we have a quorum, and so we're gonna start the meeting now. And the recording is going now. So let me call the meeting to order at 7:06 with a quorum of 4, absent Yaslin Daniels. Briefly, for my remarks, I had a meeting, really positive meeting with Karen and Jeff and the mayor last Thursday to talk about basically about systems and communications and things like that. And two of the things that were discussed and that I will be bringing back to you all is one, that the village is now capable of providing all of the committee chairs with an email address on the village server. And that's been long in coming, and I think it's very important. So depending on the availability of people's time, we will be making that move over so that my address, they don't have the capacity for all the members to be on it, but the chairman will be on the village server and the correspondence will be on the village server. And so that's in the works. The second thing is, I think we've all noticed that that the ZBA and the HDRB both have, to varying degrees and in varying styles, information on their pages explaining what the process is generally, to give the public some idea of what they're going to be facing in terms of the procedures. And we don't really have that. And I think it's important that we do. And I don't know how HDRB actually formulated them. Theirs is quite different from ZBA's, but my view is that we ought to have a fairly plain language explanation of what the process entails. Disclaimer language that it's not that information is not a substitute for reading the code, but just giving people a sense of the relationship between the village hall and the planning board and the buildings department. So that seemed agreeable to everybody. I asked Lara if she, and I said I would take the first stab at doing something in consultation with John first to make sure. And I asked Lara to give me a hand on doing that, and she generously agreed to do that. So she and I will be corresponding and pulling together a draft, basically, and then that will be circulated to all of the board members for comment, and to John first for comment. And we will move forward, from that. So I do have some Fjord Trail information, but I'm going to wait till we get into the meat of the meeting. I would like a vote to modify the agenda because there were some, I know, suggested changes to the minutes that haven't been incorporated yet. So I'd like to put off the approval of the minutes until the next meeting. And for that, I need a resolution from someone to modify the agenda. Sue, thank you. Can I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. And a vote in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Karen, did you catch who seconded and who?
Either Matt or Laura, both of them did.
I think it was in stereo.
Yeah.
Okay,
We'll give it to Lara.
okay. Let's do it alphabetically. And Yaslin is joining us. So let's give her a chance to come on. Hi, Yaslin.
Everybody, sorry I'm late.
That's okay. We're in the business part of the meeting, and we've just voted to put off the approval of the minutes until next meeting.
Okay.
And I gave a short report, which I'll catch you up on. Okay. And then are there any member reports?
As usual, I would report on the Dockside Park.
Okay.
We take our walk almost every day. It is moving along the shoreline. The rocks are completely finished. They have a gravel path that's sort of winding from the beginning to the dock, the launching pad there. There's still some dirt, but they put the topsoil along the shoreline and closer to the park. So we don't know what they're going to do, but it seems it will be grass or whatever they can. It's only one person working. However, it is moving along, and you can see the plan coming into effect. It's going to be quite nice. The only question I think I have is, when they put toilet in there, how it's going to be maintained, who is going to do it, and so on. That's still always our question. But you can see once the park is in shape, those things are immediately in people's mind. This is a nice park. How are we going to use it? And so on. So that's my observation right there. But I think the park is coming along quite nicely. But
Right.
the main thing is how are we going to use it, and how the public is going to use it, and how it's going to affect our whole traffic pattern and everything else.
Thank you. Just quickly, as soon as the construction is completed, and I don't know who determines that, there will be a shift over by a previously signed agreement to the village, which will then become responsible for maintaining the park and programming it, basically. It's a licensee's agreement or user's agreement. I don't know whether, honestly, I don't know the answer about whether and if there will be permanent bathrooms there. I don't think so, but
I don't think so.
I-
It's probably use the put.
okay. So I think your questions about the future management of it, we should be directed, we can direct in conversations to the village once they assume their responsibilities under the agreements.
Okay.
In 2028, I believe it is, that all reverts back to the Parks Department, and very likely the Fjord Trail will take that over. Okay?
Okay.
Okay. Thank you. No correspondence to speak of, I believe, no new business. So let's go to old business and to the application from 40 Main Street for a change of the site plan. James Gary, who's the owner of the building or one of the owners of the building, is here to explain to us. You'll recall back in May, we approved a change of the site plan, change of use from all retail to retail and office space. And this application is to amend that site plan. It's a new application, but it's to amend the former site plan to change the percentages between retail and office. So James, why don't I turn it over to you, and you can just explain to us what the application is proposing. Okay.
Yeah, sure, you bet. Thanks, Jack. Appreciate it. Thanks, everyone. Let's see. There's a wonderful side-by-side comparison that was provided in the package. I think that's really helpful. If you guys haven't seen it, maybe we can put it on the screen. I could just speak to it because it's color coded
Yeah.
which makes it a little bit easier to explain what sections change. And I
We,
can do it too if you don't have it.
I have seen it. Do you want to share screen? Can we? do
Sure.
that, Karen? Whoops, you're muted, Karen. So I can't hear you.
Yeah, I have it. It's not in color though. So James, maybe you want to share yours if you have it,
Yeah, I'd be happy to. No
because it'll
problem.
show the color.
You bet. It looks like the host has disabled participant screen sharing, so looks like there's some
Mm.
setting you can flip that lets me be a little more
How about that?
There you go.
There you go.
Oh,
Perfect.
super. Let me share my screen now. And I got lots on my screen, so hold on, team. Thanks for your patience. There we go. So is that up on the screen, headline side-by-side comparison?
It's up.
Okay. I gotta figure out a zoom here. How small is it on your all screen?
At 125, you want to zoom it down. You want to, because you're
Zooming
you're
in.
not getting both.
Oops. Zooming in, zooming in, zooming in.
oh, it says 125.
Yeah.
How's that? I zoomed in to about one something. Is that visible to you guys?
Only just went away there.
There you
There
go.
you go.
No, there are two of them now. Okay.
Yeah.
I now see it side by side.
Okay. All right. So
Yeah.
let me go to, I can do a little bit of dragging here. So let me go over to this side. This is the approved site plan
Yeah.
from previous, wherein yellow represents the change from original retail to commercial, with 2 retails remaining left and right flanking a garage door. So originally all retail, then we moved this to commercial and left 2 retails left and right here. So I'm going to call that pink and purple. I'm going to slide over to the proposed change. And I think I can zoom this one in just a little more and still be on the screen and make it easier on everyone's monitor. Is that better?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So same in that we're mixed commercial and retail, but expanding the retail or reverting it back to retail and reducing the office size. So reasons for this are varied, but I think the key piece here is it's going back more to what it was before by expanding retail A and retail B, by moving it back approximately 15 feet here, and then expanding that previous commercial in the center to being retail B in totality. So just to do a quick back and forth, pretend I was an ophthalmologist, that would be A and then B. So that's the proposal for the site plan change, increasing retail in this configuration. How was that, Jack? Was that helpful?
That was helpful. Thank you. Are there, I know I have a few questions, but are there, Matt, do you have any, I know that there were questions out there, so.
Was it referred to us as a change of use or as a site plan amendment?
Site plan amendment.
Does it require a change of use, I guess is my question. I mean, the uses are all approved on the site. It's just the square footage that are changing. I don't know that we've ever really had anything like this. I would think it's just a site plan amendment and updating the parking table and then the parking waivers, but it could be a John question, even as much as I've done this. But it seems, good Lord, it seems like if the use is already approved, it's really an amendment. And then it doesn't, especially if it doesn't touch the parking agreement for the office space.
Well, that was a question I had, James, because in the application, the body of the application, it says that it does not affect the agreement that's been fashioned between the village and you all, that was signed earlier in the year, and yet that agreement was based on, percentages of office versus retail. So we were not part of developing the terms of that agreement. We just originally, under Matt's leadership, suggested that something needed to be worked out. And it was. But can you explain to me why in changing the percentages here, it's not affecting that agreement? Or have you spoken to the village about it?
Sure, yeah, absolutely. So we're reducing, so the parking agreement was built upon the square footage. And the function of square footage means number of parking spaces required. In this case, we're reducing the square footage that would be related to that parking. So it's a reduction. So it's a net reduction, not an increase. A net reduction means that we don't need to ask for more parking, and we don't need to renegotiate the agreement with the village for the parking. The attorney brought up a pretty good point. It's an annual renewal on the parking agreement. So we can always adjust that and talk about it at that renewal period. And the only piece that is a net negative is to the owner of the building, because we're paying extra for less spaces that we need. But I'm of mind to not worry about this and just let it true up when that agreement comes up for renewal, since there's not any harm or any detriment to the village in terms of needing to pay for extra spaces.
So it's just a question of timing. You do want to adjust the parking agreement.
Probably, but not the burning piece right now, correct?
And I do believe, Matt, that we had a commitment from the village when it comes time to review it. I think it's every year that it's reviewed, that we would be, the planning board would be consulted in that review. So it will come back to us as well. I have one more question, James. In the original plan, the entrance to the office space was through that central corridor.
Right.
So how are you getting your people in and out now that it's going to be blocked off by retail?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I was going to bring it up if it didn't come. So let's, I wish I had a parcel map, but I'll just explain how the layout of the building is. So when we were doing the remodel and demo, we found lots of holes in the building. I mean, more than, for example, there was a garage door between this building and Bijou where they would pull in trucks. There was a door here. We found a door here. There's a door subterranean here. There's another door here. So we uncovered that there's a door which allows us for an entrance. And then of course we need an egress, which is a new door here. Should I zoom one more time? I can do that. Hold on. There, one more.
And these are all accessible by alleyways? What's the?
Yeah. So this is an alleyway. And this is an existing door to the alleyway, Matt.
And what are the bump outs that are happening in the alley that they're showing that they're drawn there?
These guys here?
Yeah.
These are the sizes. That's 9.5 foot 8 inch. And this is 12.8. And I don't know exactly why they did it and what it's representing, but that's what they are. Sorry,
Those aren't,
I should answer the question better.
those aren't structures. Those are just, that alleyway is wide open. Those are just dimensioning lines.
Yeah.
Okay.
This is this parcel includes this alley. So this is the building's alley with the entrance from Main here coming down. And this is an existing door that we want to demise and then replace with this door over here that we would open up. And then coming back to the entrance, we have an original, again, the footprint would be nice. There's a parcel that goes from here out to here to where the depot is on Depot. And this is a parcel that we own. So there's an access to a landing that's been built here up. So as far as we've been able to figure out, this landing was built to serve as an old entrance to this building because it goes from the end of the building to approximately this space here. So there's a big landing of about 110 square feet up.
Of
And
property
stairs
that,
travel down.
of property that you own and control,
Mhm.
including egress and getting off of your property out to safe
Correct.
space.
Yes, this is on the parcel tax map. This space here, access is right to Depot Avenue or Road. I don't know which, but
Eco Square.
Depot
Do you-
Square.
Do you have a survey? Did we see a survey? I don't recall.
Hmm. Was it in the package? I can look if you let me go back. to
No,
my-
no, no, go ahead, go ahead, just for my own. You can go ahead, the board can.
Oh, Tim Russett's pretty good. I got one. I have it. I can throw it up on the screen, Matt. Ready?
Sure.
Yep. Now I'm just gonna stop sharing, reshare, pick this guy up, bring it up. Move my zoomer. Whoops, why did it do that? Sorry, thanks for your patience. Okay, this is the parcel. It's not a survey, Matt, but it gives
Right.
a,
So
look.
the back, the second means of egress, I understand that there's an opening there, but it were the other three parcels to change, to put a fence up or something, you would not have safe access. Well, I guess you'd have safe space. This is all going to be a code enforcement issue, but obviously we should be looking at it from a high level.
yeah,
to be- Go ahead.
Oh. My understanding is that as long as we have an agreement with that parcel, which we control, and I'm not a lawyer, I'm not that technical in the vernacular, but we can create a legal right of way onto that parcel, which would preserve the exit into whatever perpetuity because it's in the deed.
Okay.
This is a fortuitous pickup. I mean, I was in front of the historic review board talking about when we acquired this parcel, we acquired the old stable that's on this parcel. But in that same sale, they had this parcel and this parcel. So it was one transaction for all three.
So what's showing there is 48, 1, 2, 2, 3, and 48, 12, 2, 12. Those two are part of the parcel.
Could you repeat that for me, Jack? I didn't
Yeah,
catch
the
it.
48, 12, 2, 3,
This one, yes.
and then the 48, 12, 2, 12. Those are all part of the same parcel.
No.
Well, there's three separate parcels, 1, 2, and 3. And this is the one abutting these two are abutting the building. And this is the one that has the egress that's proposed.
Okay, but that is part of the parcel.
No, you don't own that one, right? You have two non-contiguous parcels, right?
We own this one,
Right?
this one,
Oh, you do own that one.
this one, and this one.
Okay.
Oh, so you can't, so you do control all of it.
Mhm.
Oh, okay, good. Yeah.
Okay.
And this is really just for your own, just as you go to the code enforcement officer, that's the question they're going to have, right? Because if somebody then says, well, I'm putting a pool there, and that's your fire exit. Better to be in a pool than a burning building, but nevertheless, it could be a problem.
Yeah.
Go
yeah,
ahead. Thanks.
That's right. Right. So that's exactly correct. So
Wow,
a
you're buying
safe
up the block.
egress. Well, it sounds cool, but it was just one purchase here, and that these came with it. So,
Oh, wow.
and there is a pool here, by the way.
There
which
is, yeah.
yeah, a terrible pool.
Yes, just a bill, not really a pool.
Exactly. So yeah, so the understanding is the door, we put in the deed that there's the right of access to the lot, and then it's, you know,
Yeah, no, it's important for an office full of people that are, may need to get out in a hurry.
absolutely. And then I'm gonna flip back. If, Jack, do you want me to stay on this one? Any more questions on this, guys?
No, thank you.
I'm gonna go back to the other ones. Because we have to have egress in 2 places, so I have that worked out. I'm gonna probably have to stop sharing to share a new. Where was our map? There she is. There it was. Right. It didn't take. Something happened. Okay, is it sharing the map again?
No.
It's trying.
Okay, I'll just be patient.
There we go.
Okay, it came back up.
Yep.
Okay, great. Yeah, so parcel here that we saw comes out here, exit. And then that's what the second egress is this up here to the right into the alleyway.
Nice.
And then, handicapped accessible, ADA platform lift here to go out because this is below grade.
Okay, so your main entrance, per se, the office entrance then is going to be on Main Street, in the alleyway behind the area that's now painted sort of bright yellow. That door.
We'd like to have the main entrance here, not on Main Street,
Oh, I see. Okay.
a little less flow from Main Street, and then
Okay.
the emergency exit out the alley.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Any other questions from the board members? No? Okay. James, we need to have a public hearing on this.
Mhm.
Which we can, if the board decides to vote for that, we can hold at our next meeting, which is the 22nd.
Are we required to hold a public hearing since we don't have a change of use? We're just doing a site plan amendment? It's never a bad thing to do. It's just a question.
I think we do, but why don't we go ahead and set the date and talk about the radius of notification, and then I'll follow up on that. I think that we do, but I will follow up on that, and I'll get back to all of you and to you as well, James, as to whether it's considered, whether it's required. It's certainly a type 2 action under CEQA, so that there's no more additional environmental review, I believe, necessary, and because it's not within 500 feet of a county road, it doesn't have to go across county for approval. What's the board's feeling about the radius of notification if the public hearing is required? There was a full public hearing on this change of use already, as Matt points out, and as the application shows, this is not affecting the change of use. So what's your feeling about what would be an appropriate radius for notification?
Didn't we have one before?
Karen had used 300 feet, but that's a lot of people on Main
That's a
Street.
lot, yeah, that's.
That's a lot of people. That's what I'm saying. I don't think this necessarily warrants that. And we have.
What the planning board has historically done is just on either side and then mirroring that across the street. because Main Street can get so, and and they're frankly mostly absentee landlords that
Okay,
you're notifying. So that's what the planning board has historically done, 1 or 2 to either way.
okay.
Which this one you just go to, to 2 Depot Square, and then maybe you would go 1 or 2 to the right. And then typically you would mirror that directly across the street since
So
the
that would,
impacts
that would be
are the same.
Bijou and Doug's Pub, basically.
Yeah.
And 2 Depot Square, and then across the street to Mirror. Like, is that generally satisfactory to everybody? Makes sense to me,
Yeah, I think a radius is not workable on Main Street.
right? Okay. All right, so we need a resolution to schedule a public hearing based upon, my further investigation for September 22nd, and for the radius, the notification, the area of notification to be that which we have agreed upon here, which is which we will pull from the minutes or the record of this. So may I have a resolution, please? Lara, was that a yes? Okay.
Yeah.
May I have a second, please?
Second.
Second,
Okay. Does this have to be a roll call, Karen? That was a no? You're muted again.
Yeah, not for a public hearing. You don't have to do a roll call.
Great. Okay, so then all in favor of scheduling it for the 22nd?
Aye.
Aye, so that's unanimous. Anyone opposed? No abstentions. Okay, James, well, we will move ahead then with that, and some action will be taken at the next meeting, because we will have to do a resolution approving this if that's the consent of the group. So we will be working with you. You've been through a public hearing before, that the village hall is there and will help you with the addresses, but you need to, I don't know what the escrow account now is, but I would check with Jeff to see whether there's, sufficient in the escrow account, and to keep proof of the mailings, which will be required at the village hall, okay? But if there are any questions, feel free to speak to the secretary, or you can write me or whatever. Okay,
Yeah, I think I have it. Maybe some of the tactics I'll just need to get a little bit of more detail on, but you got it. Crystal clear to me. Thank you.
and we will take care of developing the notice for the paper, right, Karen? Okay, all right, thanks very much. We'll let you go. Appreciate your coming in.
I think, Karen, was there another item that was put on this meeting for our meeting earlier with Jeff and?
Karen, you need to unmute again.
Do this, I'm on a lot of Zooms. I do that
Back
like
and
maybe.
forth, back and forth. In what respect, James, did you want to?
We were talking about this afternoon's meeting where Greg had emailed Jack about the salon. What was the modification, site plan and use for
So
retail B?
is that a potential change of use? Do you want to describe that to the board, what the plan is for that retail space? And then they can kind of advise you on that.
Sure. So, well, maybe Jack, did you receive an email from Greg earlier today?
I did, and he said that he had given permission for it to be explained to us and discussed. I didn't know whether you were going to go ahead with that or not, so.
If it's okay with this group, I'd like to. If it's
Sure.
an efficient use of their time, I'd be happy to. It's pretty quick.
Sure.
Okay, all right. So the original plan, this is going to be really straightforward as long as I use maps again. So I'm going to do a little screen sharing. I'm going to be a pro of a screen share in just about half an hour here.
Okay, the next time.
Let's see. I don't think I'm sharing the right thing now. Interesting. Resume share. Yeah, side by side. That's
There
right.
you go.
Gotcha. Okay, so to avoid confusion, the matter of this site plan proposed, we handled. This is just illustrative for something that we missed. And now we're looking at the approved site plan again.
That's the former approved site plan, right?
Correct. And not the one in front of the team here for review for public hearing, but the one that was already approved and building permits were issued. So this is retail B, and the tenant, it's CS Apothecary, Cold Spring Apothecary. I bravely said that word apothecary. I hope I said it right. You can make fun of me later if I said it wrong behind my back. But this is now retail. Jeff from the village explained to us in a meeting today that to be changed to a salon requires some type of action.
It's a change of use. Yeah. So
Use.
it's
Gotcha.
strange actually that the code enforcement officer, we don't do this. The code enforcement officer, we can certainly find errors, I think, 37 Chestnut was a good example, right? For a special use permit, it's not allowed in the zone. So it's an allowed use in the zone, but typically the code enforcement officer would write us a referral saying that, that you need a change of use, right? They would
Okay.
understand. They wouldn't refer it to us unless there was some need to, right? So, if for example, if you kept this all retail, the whole thing, we would have never met, right? Until you opened up.
Mhm.
So it should really be, it's kind of weird that it's happening this way where the code enforcement officer is telling us to discuss it with you. But yeah, a hair salon is a different use. Also, is Cold Spring Coffee still going to be in the space, or are they not moving with them?
Just a hair salon for retail B.
Because they currently have a counter where they do tea and coffee, and I think it's a subtenant really, but it's none of our business. But that was a change of use for that space as well, right? In the existing space over in the Sky Baby building.
Yeah, that's not the intent. It's to
That's not
be
coming.
purely a hair salon with 3 chairs.
Okay.
I think, Matt, just to clarify, if it's okay. I
Absolutely.
don't think Greg was aware of the possibility of a change of use in that retail. That kind of came out during the meeting, that's what this tenant intended to have.
That
So
the hair
it
salon's
kind of,
there, or
I'm sorry, say
that
again?
the hair salon was moving, or
That
'cause
it would be not just retail selling, whatever items she sells in the apothecary, but that it would also have, I think, James, you said it was 3 salon chairs that other people rent from her and, to do hair. So then we wondered, and Jeff had brought it up, is that now a change of use from just strictly retail to a retail personal service or whatever? So it kind of came up during the meeting. And Greg was not even aware of that, and we weren't either, so.
or wasn't aware of the use for personal services?
Yes,
Okay,
right.
yeah, gotcha. Okay. Okay, I mean, then obviously if it's a change of use, it's just then obviously we're doing the right thing by setting the public hearing, right? And we can iron, then Jack can iron that out with the code enforcement officer. And if needed, get the referral updated, right?
Yeah,
Okay,
Jeff was just letting us know that it had come up sort of late in the day, and
right.
that we should be aware of it.
And,
But-
and Matt, would that require, like with 37 Main Street, would that require a whole new application and separate referral, or just an amendment to the referral? I just want to be clear with Jeff.
Yeah, it's a good point because it's adding a use. It's not, that's not
Yeah.
a site plan amendment. Not a minor site plan amendment, but the process is still all the same anyway, right? It's filling out an application. The application
Okay.
is here. The application should clearly state that it's, the use is. If the code enforcement, the code enforcement officer needs to be just that, the code enforcement officer, and in that role refers stuff over to us because it requires an approval. And typically they'll even reference the sections of code. This one just kind of says, changes to the site plan. But you should reference the sections of code where we're needing to focus, right? Which would be that it would be a change of use because we're adding a use to the site,
Okay,
right? But we need the code enforcement officer to kind of tell us what to do.
Okay.
But it's certainly within our rights to say, oh, okay, this isn't right. Can you look at this again, please? It's a back and forth. But that's kind of
But
the proper.
it can be added to the existing application, may it not?
Yeah. The whole process is no different, right? The application is there. It's a type 2 exempt.
Right, and
I
we
mean,
have
it's-
enough.
Yeah, you're basically, it's all the same steps anyway.
Okay,
So, yeah, I would just say that if it is, then you would definitely do a public hearing.
okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so I think, James, that this can be accommodated in the current sort of point in the process, and I'll speak to Greg about it, okay?
So this is like, not amended to the one that we're talking about scheduling. This is amending to the original, is that?
No, I think it's amending to the new one.
No,
So the new one is not.
I don't know if that, let's just kind of figure that out because it's conflating some things here. So this is what was approved, permit issued,
Right,
and then I'm just trying to get this tenant in. I guess it could be done at the same time, but wait, can you hold it? It's so funny. My Siri just started talking. Bear with me. Weird.
Is the coffee shop still going to be there, or no more coffee shop, just the hair salon?
Yeah, we should make sure that's, because I will tell you that's part of the confusion is that there are multiple businesses existing in there. There's one leaseholder, and then I think there are some subtenants.
Mhm.
Not that we have anything to do with the lease structure, just that I think it's sometimes the communication can be a little choppy because you're talking to the primary leaseholder, the overlease, right? And they're saying, hey, I run the apothecary, I sell candles and, lotions and, and yet the other stuff gets forgotten. But
Right.
but James, you're 100% confident that Cold Spring Coffee is not moving with them because that's a food service. So,
Correct. Well,
okay.
for this existing use, this approved piece, this is just a hair salon. So I think I just wanted to go back and make sure we're all on the same page. I'm not looking to amend the one that we just talked about, but to amend this one for the change use for this retail B section.
But that retail B section, you don't want it configured that way anymore. You want it to take the purple gets combined with the yellow next to it, right?
Right.
Yeah, that would be moved to the new one. The whole site for the salon would be, the purple side would be the same as the new proposal you have, the right-hand side. the other
Yeah,
one.
your drawing, in my opinion, your drawings don't need to change at all. You basically just need to put some verbiage in first of all, Jack will talk to the code enforcement officer, right? To say, is this, or should you also be referring this for a change of use to add personal services, right? That's his decision to say yes or no. If he says yes, it's just, you're just adding some language in there saying that you're having personal service. Your next drawing, which is the proposed one, which shows the large purple next to the pink with the yellow above it, none of that needs to change.
Mhm.
Okay. So, gotcha.
So,
And the hearing that we're talking about setting, it can all be covered in that hearing. Yeah, we just
Right.
need to get it cleared up, because obviously Jack's going to direct the attorney, or Karen directly, is going to direct the attorney to do a legal notice. That legal notice has to say what what you're doing, right? And so if it is in fact a change of use as opposed to just a minor site plan amendment, that's the only difference. Everything else is going to feel exactly the same, right? The public hearing, public comment, the board talks about it, and the board votes. You will need to do a parking table though.
Why?
And it's, well, because the retail you would use parking waivers. And so you're increasing the retail square footage. So you will need an updated parking table and buy parking waivers. The board should discuss that a bit too. Parking waivers are for a one-time use. And when you come in for a change of use, you lose them. I think since the space has never opened, I think that is incredibly, that's a penalty that's kind of ridiculous, in my opinion. They haven't yet been used is what my argument would be, right? Every time you do a change of use, you have to buy new parking waivers, right? In my opinion, at least the parking waivers that have already been bought, it seems fair to me to say you're credited for those. You just need to buy the difference because they haven't actually been used.
Right.
How does the board feel about that?
Yeah, I agree. Well, if you haven't really used it, if there is a difference, you either increase or decrease. That's pretty much it, as far as I can see.
Karen, I think Lara's in the waiting room. Do you see her?
oh,
She just texted me. She got bumped, or I think her connection
oh,
dropped.
for goodness
Sorry.
sake, okay. Yeah, I can't see because the screen
Okay.
share is up.
Yeah, I'll stop that, Karen, to help make it a little easier. There you go.
Thank you.
Sure.
But it sounds like from all that we're saying is that unfortunately we have to wait to get the referral back and get the current application stuff updated, before apothecary folks can move in.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, because you don't really.
Yeah.
It would be out of conformance to the site plan. The code enforcement officer shouldn't issue a permit to do, to join those spaces, to do things like that. There's no approval in place.
Right. And I would also recommend when you go back to update to double confirm that there's not going to be a coffee shop in there, because we are talking about sub leases, and it, for completeness and accuracy, it makes sense to double confirm that.
Yeah, and
And
expediency. Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah, because like I said, James, we dealt with them a few times actually, and so there were three different business owners, because food service is another use. None of this
Right.
should really be troubling at all. It's literally just some language in your application that needs to be updated. If in fact the code enforcement officer, as I suspect, will agree that it's a change of use. And then basically the poster that you put on says there's a hearing. The legal notice that the attorney writes will say why there's a hearing, and then the village will vote. These are all, obviously the board doesn't predict outcomes, but they're all conforming uses, and it is the exact reason. Very much unlike your office space, the retail is exactly what the payment in lieu of parking waivers are for. It's the intended purpose of those. So I would see no reason why the board wouldn't grant. It is at the board's discretion, but I would see no reason, and all past practice would indicate that they will again.
Okay. So understood, got it. Thanks for the further guidance, Yaslin, on that, and double confirming. I get it, totally understand. I'd like to see and ask to the board here, is there is there any potential like path to have someone in the space with that change of use provisionally before the approval and the public hearing and the process happens? And what I'm trying to do is make an appeal. Yeah, it was an oversight completely. But we have a business that's, you know, really challenged in terms of trying to open and to continue to, you know, do well. Pushing it out quite a bit is probably very problematic for that business. I'm not sure if there's an option we could explore to try to help CS Apothecary out. What do you guys think?
Is there any ability that they could operate in? It's a little over half the space, right? Is that demising wall even there?
Can I bring it back up for you? Would that help? I'm not.
Are the 3 spaces partitioned as they're shown on the side-by-side plan? Was the approved work done?
The approved work is completed, yes.
Oh, okay. So could they occupy the space that's already approved and then expand into the other space once that's approved?
Correct. That's what our strategy has been, is to do it that way. Yeah.
That's up to the code enforcement officer if he's willing to issue a permit. If he's willing to issue a permit, then proceed, right?
Okay.
But I would not occupy the office space for retail and personal. Oh God, you do need a change of use. Oh Christ, I
Yeah.
don't know.
Yeah, because.
Yeah, I don't know.
It was not originally approved for hair salon. It was originally approved for just retail.
Yeah, so I guess get the answer from the code enforcement officer if 3 chairs is personal services or if the vast majority of it is retail. But I think it's personal services. I mean, I think you have to both. Unfortunately,
But-
I'll go through the code more carefully too. To
Yeah,
see if
and
that's-
I'll have a conversation with Greg. I mean, this is so complicated.
Yes, you basically just want to look in the B1 and look for the approved uses, right? And then,
Yeah.
you know, what flows under there.
I think it's 134.9 if it's helpful.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
it was 9.
Did I say that right, Karen?
Yeah, I have it here. 134.
Was this sort of the subject of the meeting earlier today? I'm just trying to play catch up here with.
Yeah, it
It-
was. Oh, go ahead, Karen, please.
Yeah, it did come up because, you know, Greg wanted to let the owner go forward with what has already been approved in the resolution. And so that he could do that, but only up until that line in the property where it had been approved. Everything else had to stop. So, and then during the conversation, as James was just saying, he was kind of making an appeal on behalf of his tenant. And that's when the issue of the salon part of it came up. So Jeff said, you know, I'm thinking that's a change of use as well as an amendment to a site plan. So it just kind of came out of the conversation. Nobody had an idea that was going to be the use of the space, a salon as well as retail. So there was conversation about, well, you know, is it 2 permitted uses and would that be approved? Is it primarily retail and the hair is secondary? Or, you know, so it just came up in that kind of context. And then, you know, we thought it best for it to be mentioned to the board and see what you guys thought.
Okay, but
So it's not called out as a permitted use in the B1. I'm wondering if the code enforcement officer would say that it's a professional office. I don't know, it's a professional.
Well,
What's
in the-
licensed?
In the B1, 135.9C, it has retail businesses That's under C2, and then.
Where, are you- I'm sorry, where are you, Karen?
Oh,
135, 9?
134-9 C,
C?
subsection C. And it has under 2, retail business, and 3 is personal service shops. So it doesn't look like there was a definition of personal service shops, but I guess everybody
yeah,
would think that that is a salon
Agreed.
is certainly that,
Let me just take a quick look at
It's
it.
it's licensed, so.
yeah.
Hey, Karen, while if Matt's looking at it, is there, if I Google it and got somewhere, could you give me a little guidance on where I could take a look at it? I'm not familiar with it. We just talked about it today.
If you go under the village code,
Okay,
Cold Spring Village Code.
Mhm.
And, you know, your search should be section 134-9. That's regulations for B1 General Business District.
got it.
Does the use come with the installation of equipment, or does the use come with the practice of the service?
I don't know.
The use is just that, it's the use. It's what the tenant is using the space for. No, Karen's got it. That's the right section of the code. That's what I was looking for. It is personal service shops. That is a use. It's a use that is not yet on the site.
Right.
It's not yet approved, unfortunately. The code enforcement officer, look, the code enforcement officer can decide what they're going to enforce and what they're not going to enforce. You can have a conversation with him. We're not, we're not part of that. This board, myself, certainly, or just speaking for myself more accurately, is there's no different impact in the use. So if the code enforcement officer feels there's an avenue for you, I certainly don't, wouldn't object, but you still have to go through the process of getting the use approved on the site. You got to get the parking table updated. You'll have to buy a couple parking waivers probably. Pull your old parking table and then the board can discuss. Jack, I mean, you probably want to do that at the hearing to say, well, can we really call these parking waivers used when the place never opened?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. No, I agree with that. Yeah. Okay. So, we answer, you answer less, but I do want to have a conversation with Greg before we discuss this any further. Greg,
Okay.
because
So just so I know what's going forward, and Jeff and I can, properly describe it to him. So if Greg says, yes, that's a change of use, then we would have to go through that process again of an additional application, EAF, all of that. And try to get that on it.
Let me just interrupt, Karen, just so
Sure.
we can, just because I think this James is stressing out here unnecessarily. I think that he just needs to amend, no different than what happened over at 37 Chestnut, right? Just update the application, right? Personal services, you are absolutely right. You found the right code. A beauty salon is a personal service. The use has to be
Right.
added. He just needs to put that in his referral. James needs to just list the businesses, and like Yasmin and I had both said, make darn sure whether or not Cold Spring Coffee is moving with them,
Right.
right? Because if they're moving, you need to add food service, right?
Right.
Add it in, and then we've already said that we can get ready for a public hearing with exactly what you have plus a parking table, right? The board
Okay.
agrees. Yeah, so I think that's,
Yeah, the only reason I was asking is because with 37 Chestnut, she did go through that whole new application, getting another referral, it was like a whole new application, so.
when you mean when
That's-
we added like gymnasium or whatever we did, I don't even remember what we called it, special use or not
well,
special use.
yeah, she had to, because she had to now change the site plan, she had to put in a whole new application.
After she was
that's-
already approved.
after she was approved.
I'm talking about the
Yes.
first step where we had a referral for a special use permit. There's no such thing as special use permits in the B2.
Right.
So we said, just get the referral updated, nothing even changed on her application. I'm talking about
Okay.
the first step, not the second step. You're right. The second
Got it.
step is a new application.
I got it.
But
Okay.
this one is already essentially a new application that we're working with. We
Yeah,
haven't
it
taken
is-
it to
it-
public hearing yet. So get it
That's correct.
updated before the public hearing
That's
and,
correct.
and have a hearing.
That
Okay.
is correct. And and that was the decision of the board, was that both, that this would be a new application, and that's what we're dealing with now. But
Okay.
there has been no approval, and we have time before we have to publish the public notice of
Sure.
it. So,
And Karen
Okay.
has the correct citation, 134-9C. Personal service shops are shops that provide personal services to individuals, hair salons, right?
Right.
but that was, that had been approved in the former location, right?
It's an allowed use in the B1. It's not an issue at all.
Okay.
It's also very much a short-term trip parking, you know, not to beat a dead horse, but unlike an office, right? So it's, you know, the parking waive, the payment in lieu of parking waivers are, it's in line with the legislative intent of those waivers. So
Okay.
Okay.
All right, James, so we'll be back to you, okay?
Yeah, I gotcha. Thanks. I appreciate everything. I think there's a couple paths, but I mean, in terms of the shortest term, but we'll get those updated as you articulated,
Okay.
Jack and Matt and Yasin for the additional piece there. So all good. I'll
Okay, I'll try and have a chat with Greg tomorrow.
cool. Appreciate it. Thanks, guys.
Okay,
I'll drop off. We'll see you on the next one. Bye.
bye.
good night.
Okay,
Laura
so,
back? Is Laura back on?
No, I see.
Yeah.
Laura, what?
I think that's
is
her on the
she
phone, right?
Telephone number?
I
Okay,
assume as much.
Okay,
Is that? Yeah, that's hers. Isn't
okay.
that crazy? Look at that phone number. How did she get that number?
whose phone number is it? Lara?
That's Laird. Yeah, it's a real phone number.
Did, okay. All right, moving on quickly to the Fjord Trail, just to bring you up to date. Yaslin and I are going to meet next Tuesday with mayor and the village attorney to discuss the logistics and restrictions and goals to the extent we can of this joint meeting on the 28th of September. And the purpose of the meeting is so that we'll all be clear as to, you know, working. The idea here is, I think, informally, is for the planning board and the village trustees to work in tandem to the extent we are able to do so, in adopting a position and a strategy for moving forward in dealing with Fjord Trail as the various stages come down the line. So that's the purpose of the meeting, and I'll probably report back to everybody via email because, you know, our next meeting is the 22nd and the joint board meeting is the 28th. Now, we had agreed, and so had Fjord Trail at an earlier meeting, that they were going to develop a basically an overlay, an action overlay of the activities connected with the Fjord Trail that would have specific impact on Cold Spring and a time frame for those activities so that we could establish some sort of action plan as to what needed to be addressed at what point and what the sequence was going to be in terms of approvals. They haven't seen that from them yet. Have you gotten anything from them? Yes? No.
No,
Okay.
I've not.
Okay, so I'll follow up, or yes, and you can, whatever. It will be followed up on to.
Okay, so you want to do that, or do you want me to do it?
Why don't you do it if you have the time to do it? Okay,
I do. I don't believe I have her contact information though.
okay, I'll get that to you. Okay.
If I could
Yeah.
ask one thing, in your meeting, can you clarify the status of the LWRP? Look, I entirely get why the Hudson Highlands Fjord Trail folks are showing us things in our own documents. But again, like I had said in that meeting, it was always assumed all those decisions would be made under the control of the village, right? Not, a project that is being controlled by somebody else. And
Right.
it's, and even things like, well, we asked the Fair Street folks, they didn't like these people coming to the Breakneck Connector, down their road. Well, you can't turn around and say, well, nobody asked the West Street folks whether they'd like 1 million people marching by them to go to a 7.5-mile linear park. So you can't kind of just, can't kind of decouple those and not talk about the other one. So obviously the comp plan exists, it was accepted. My understanding of the LWRP was that it was accepted by the village board, but it was rejected by the Secretary of State because it didn't have enough zoning changes. One of the
Right.
problems was chapter 134,
That's
right?
correct.
So, they kind of, it's kind of like using our documents, not to say against us, but to support to support a position, right? But we should at least know the position and, the status of our doc. The LWRP is not approved.
Right.
It is not, and it is
Okay.
not, and funds were provided to
To
help
do the work, right?
do the work, and it still isn't complete.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
yeah, but I will check and see whether anything has changed about that. The other question is, what do we as a board want to see come out of this meeting on the 28th? Is it a position on specific aspects of the project? Is it a matter of developing a strategy, communication strategy for forcing and opening up of the decision-making process? I have been going through, I've been creating lists of officials who were I running a campaign to raise public awareness of the challenges that this project potentially has for Cold Spring. I would certainly include everyone on that list as people to whom we should share our concerns, with whom we should share our concerns. At this point, the conversation is being carried out by the Fjord Trail Parks Department when it feels like it wants to participate, and the Village of Cold Spring. And yet there is a much greater universe of decision makers and taste makers and people in authority who could be or should be interested in this situation. So I think we need to think about whether it is in our interest or we feel it's our responsibility to widen the audience of this discussion, in addition to actually dealing with specific impacts.
I mean, I think that's a good point, and that's been my point from the beginning. Is, in my opinion, it's really it's the job of the village board to obtain the majority opinion, right? Yeah, everybody, and I will tell you, the comments that I'm reading online are exactly kind of what you would expect, which is like, wait a minute, this isn't just the Breakneck Connector anymore. This is something entirely different, and as I had explained to the board in email a while back, that I think you get branded this visitation denier by saying this is worse. It is absolutely completely different. They are two completely different projects. I don't see how anybody could even say they're the same population. Folks that want to walk a linear park are probably not the people that are going to the Breakneck Trailhead. First of all, you need almost a whole day to do Breakneck. And I mean, it's just, they're separate population. It's going to be gorgeous, no doubt. And because of that, it's going to be very popular. Walkway Over the Hudson did their projections, which we have not seen from this project, at 250,000, and they think it's north of 500,000 people going through Dockside. I would think this would be wildly more popular than Walkway Over the Hudson. Walkway Over the Hudson is high, but it ain't pretty, right? This is going to be gorgeous, right?
Yeah.
And with the new, not just the gig economy, but post-COVID and work weeks that you can actually go on a Thursday, right? Because you're remote, or it's going to be very busy. So the question is, I don't even know what you're talking about. Like you've said, they're just projections. There's no projections. They're just pictures and conversation, right? And where they dovetail with our LWRP or our comp plan, we're shown we're doing what you want, right? That's fine. I mean, I don't, that's certainly fine. But I don't even know what we're talking about, right? Look, if there was some way to decouple the connector from the park and have the entrance to the park be somewhere else, right? That's what was agreed to. It's not hard to get public support to say, would you like to not run people down on 9D trying to drive to Beacon, right? Everybody says that sounds like a good thing. Even slowing down, well, I'll tell you, 35 miles an hour will still leave a mark, right? And will probably kill you. So slowing down is not the solution. So that was just this practical solution to a problem that everybody could get behind. This is very different, right? So, and having the entrance to that being at Dockside, and as popular as this thing is going to be, with no projections on, I talked to one of the supporters of the project, and it's just like, but it's just this beautiful thought that everybody's walking, right? And I'm like, okay, that's a dream, right? People drive, right? And the thought is everyone will come off the train. I'm like, great. Can you enforce that? You can't enter Dockside unless you have your canceled train ticket. It's very much wishful thinking, right? And it's thinking that then says, oh, well, maybe that'll help you get behind it, right? And not be a visitation denier, that visitation is happening anyway. Yes, visitation is happening anyway. We are already over visited. But if you build Highline on the Hudson, which is the same guy that designed it, they're going to come, right?
Oh, absolutely.
It's going to be gorgeous. So I mean, I would think it would be far more popular than the Walkway Over the Hudson. And those people are going to drive. So I don't know, I'm not even clear what we're talking about, who we're talking to. So it's hard for me to kind of wrap my brain around how do we structure this, right? But I think the village, yeah. And I think the village board, right? The mayor and the trustees they need to get out in front of this, whether or not it's a village charrette, whether or not it's a survey. When they did the comp plan for the town, everybody says, what do you want? What do you, look,
Yeah.
Like I was explaining to, listen, MJ, that, everybody should have access to the state park, right? No, nobody's blocking access to the state park, but you're talking about putting an attraction on the other side of the state park, right? It's the throughway to the attraction, right? It creates more visitation. So it's, and people to say, well, I live here, well, I will tell you, Garrison is a long way from Dockside, right? And the people that live down there are really going to be impacted.
Yeah, no, listen, and I have to say I part company with MJ's approach to the kind of quasi justifications for this. Not everybody has legal access to the park at the same time on the same day, 100% of them. The state has and exercises all the time policing authority in behalf of the public good. So there are limitations placed on access in almost every park, just shutting it down because of a fire hazard.
Right.
So this idea that everybody, should have a right to the park it's not accurate in the way it's being used. It's a philosophical position, but it is not accurate in the way it's being used, and it is not supported by the facts or by the state law. And it's things like
And Jack, to your point, the point of this project is hardly access to dockside. That's a silly statement. The access is it is all the powers that be and the people that are behind this project that own the land to get to where this linear park will be, right? Let's be honest about what we're talking about. And look, it's going to be gorgeous. It's going to be beautiful, but it is going to change everything. Right. So I think the village board really needs to, in my opinion, get in front of this, get the majority opinion, talk to the residents, because it's interesting when you see the comments and, people that comment on, on newspapers, they're a little, kind of heavy on one way or the other, but
Yeah.
it's a good start. And it did seem that people were very surprised to say, wait a minute, this is not just, not hitting people on 9D anymore that are trying to make it to the breakneck trailhead. You've created a destination, right? And a destination they'll come, right? I mean, I think, and it's, to say, well, we're managing over visitation. No, you're creating more over visitation. Let's be honest about that, because if we're not honest about that, then how do we manage over visitation if we can't manage the current visitation, right? And we can't keep Moo Moo's ice cream cups from rolling down, rolling through the dot, So, I mean, what are we going to do when 250,000, 500,000, or 1 million people show up? I mean, look, this, so I think the village board really needs to get in front of it,
You raised one of the things that interests me most in terms of the larger question here, and that is the growing trend of international concern about over tourism to the point where it's becoming an object of study and
Yeah.
Mitigation, and the failure of this project to catch up with that reality since they began the planning, and that the fact is that there is no consideration of that. And it is a reality, and it certainly is going to be a reality here. To me, is something that we can say and insist upon that enriches the development of a better plan. And I've been looking spending a lot of time looking for the people and the organizations that are beginning to take a leadership role in dealing with this issue and making this
to get some attention and a focus on it.
Yeah.
I mean, just the simplest things to, what really just kind of saddens me is you're turning it over to the state. The state's going to do what the state's going to do, and you don't know what they're going to do. I don't care what anybody tells me, right?
Yeah.
It wasn't anticipated that the state would take over the park, right? It was anticipated that the village would continue to, keep the licensing agreement. If we were to get all these visitors and even lose the ability to do Cold Spring Films, right? That's really sad. I mean, that's a real beautiful, thing for the community, right? To all gather down there and to see these films. It's a local nonprofit. It's all your neighbors. It's everybody you know. What if the state says, "Oh, sure, but we need 10 million in liability insurance, or we need, just these bars that are going to be set very high because of the world that we live in." I don't think that is unlikely, right? I mean, I don't know how I don't know how that would work, right? But I don't believe, nobody could convince me that you will make sure that Cold Spring Films will always have access, right? And will always be assured. No, I don't think anybody can do that. So you have these benefits to the, to the quality of life and to village life and the fabric of community that then could be lost to just, well, sorry, we need a thoroughfare to get to our park, right? Not the state park, but the cantilevered terraces that we built out over the Hudson, and you're basically in the way. I don't know if you've ever read Oliver's War, the guy that stood up against the Rockefellers, and it was the beginning of, access to land. A guy that, was a Civil War pensioner that, really held his own, even when the Rockefellers, the two, wealthiest people in the country, were trying to crush him, right? Even closing the post office, closing the train station to try to choke him out. And so, I mean, yes, they have rights, but to your point, it needs to be reasonable, right? And there's been no study as to, can you really funnel those people? I mean, look, it just seems to me that if you bought, Duchess Manor, why not, or the chalet, right? Why not make that the access to the park, right?
Well-
Use Dockside as the connector, right? Which seems to already be underway, right? And get the people from the train station to the trailhead, which was the original project, the only project. And that's the only project that's ever been put in front of the public, other than community days and, things like that. I mean, as far as officially, when they talk about Fair Street being unhappy, it was only about the connector, right? And I assure you, they didn't go ask the West Street residents or the owner of the property on the corner of, of the Dockside Park, how they feel about, 500,000 people walking through.
Maybe that's something that we should try to do during that meeting, which is to come up with a couple of recommendations for the Fjord Trail folks, in terms of just alternate suggestions for the plan that could potentially work for us, without sort of diminishing the vision of what they were going for. That could be one thing that we talk about with everybody sort of together. Because I think we all understand what the issues are. I think what we're kind of lacking at this point is, so what do we want to do, right? So sort of some solutioning, some recommendations to go back. So we have things that we're actually asking for. Because I feel like when we get in these meetings with the Fjord Trail folks, first of all, they're probably not the right audience. We all know that. But, second of all, I just feel like we may come off like we're complaining, and I'd love for us to be on the side of solutioning now. And that's one thing. And then maybe, Jack, what we could clarify with the mayor when we chat next week is just roles and responsibilities. I don't really want to do that with the Fjord Trail folks on the same call with us on the 28th.
Wait, can you just repeat that? Yes, and I didn't, your last sentence.
Oh, the Fjord Trail folks were invited to the meeting on the 28th.
Right.
I would love for us to, or have the mayor suggest what she would like our role to be. So clarify roles and responsibilities in the meeting on the 13th, so that we're all clear going into the meeting on the 18th. So that's not a topic of discussion with the Fjord Trail folks, and we're not stepping on each other's toes in terms of roles during that meeting.
Fair point. Fair point. Okay, well, this has been really helpful for me to the extent I'm trying to kind of way through all of this stuff. And we will we'll report, yes, and you and I will speak, I think, before next Tuesday.
Yeah.
And then we'll report to everybody after next Tuesday and what the next step should be. Okay. Did we lose Sue?
Yeah, a while ago.
Did we?
Yeah, we lost Sue. I sent her a text,
Okay.
but she hasn't responded.
Okay. All right, well.
Oh, here she is. Here she is. Wait a minute.
Is she back? I'm not seeing her.
She's coming.
Okay. All right.
There she is.
Is there, if we can move on, it's 8:30 now. Hey, Sue.
Sorry, my computer completely froze.
Oh, we missed you.
Yeah, well, kick me out of the thing there, but
You're not, you're now sort of elected.
yeah. I'm elected chairman of the whatever.
Exactly. Congratulations. All right. Any public out there who wishes to make a comment? No. All right. Mine's sort of frozen too. What's the next item? I can't. Oh, wait.
Board business.
Board business, I don't believe so.
Okay.
And if that's the case, may I have a resolution
Yep.
to adjourn the meeting, please?
Yeah, motion to adjourn.
Okay, is there a
Second, yep,
second? Okay, all in favor?
aye.
Aye. All right, thank you all very much. Really appreciate it.
Have a good night.
Okay.
Good night.
Good night. Okay, Teddy.
Now that you're
Bye-bye.
back.
You just made the end.
I know. How about that?
Hello, goodbye.
Good night.
See you.
Yeah. Yeah.